Well, happy Wednesday, and we are live. And I want to thank everybody for coming and joining us again on Let's Get Real. And today we have a very special guest, which we'll introduce in a moment or two. But I just want to remind you, I'm going to be putting down in our comment box as to you have to click on something, and I have put in there that Facebook enable to come on and comment directly to us. You have to click on the link that I have put in, and hopefully it created a link. Otherwise, it's streamyard.com/Facebook, and that gives you the ability to come in and talk directly with us and actually communicate so back and forth so we can see your comments and questions. And I don't want to hold up any times because I'm excited today. We have a great stop. So Nicole, take it away and tell us what's happening today.
Okay. One thing I'm going to expound on real quick, Glenda, is I do watch my Facebook for some people who haven't signed up. So I want to tell everybody, as I do watch that, it's hard to sometimes answer them on my Facebook page. If I don't answer you during the podcast, I will definitely get back to you on that. And I am very excited about our guest today because this is kind of right up my alley with holistic and healing. And so today we have Reverend Joanne Angel Barry Colon. She has 30 years in health, fitness, and the wellness industry. She is the owner of Holistic Fitness located in Queens and Certified Wholistic Personal Trainer. She's an intuitive healer, cosmic energy reader, medical astrologer, and master of numerology. So she is going to have a lot to teach us today. And I, for one, have a lot of questions, and I can't wait to hear what she's going to introduce to us today. And so with that, I think we're ready to bring her on stage, Glenda.
Woo, there she is. Ta-da!
Hello, hello.
So excited to have you joining us today.
I am super excited to be here.
I just want to allow everybody to, sit back and listen and learn, and we're here to help you grow. So tell us about yourself, how you got into this incredible field.
Well, to start off with, 30 plus years ago when I was 12, longer than that, of course, 12 years old, I had an opportunity to teach my very first gymnastics class, because back in the 80s and 90s, all of this was known as gymnastics versus personal training. And the teacher who was teaching at the time, she wasn't feeling well. I was the youngest member in her class, and she asked me if I'd like to teach. I was so excited. I was like, couldn't get yes out of my mouth quick enough. And from that very moment is when I knew right then and there that that's what I wanted to do, was to literally help women, men as well, really connect with their bodies and really fall in love with their body. Now, about 10 years ago, I started my spiritual journey, as they call it, in regards to a very long-term relationship, something of 12 years, ended suddenly, at least to my mind. And then shortly after, about 4 years after that, my mother crossed over. So between those two experiences, I literally felt like I woke up one day and had all these different healing modalities that I was playing with. And for a really short period of time, I would do my personal training and I would work with my healing modalities. And I kept asking myself, like, what am I supposed to do with these two different things? I mean, you have personal training, you have healing modalities. And then suddenly I kept hearing my mom whisper, blend them together. And of course it didn't show up like that, because when spirit speaks, spirit doesn't speak that clearly. You sort of have to fill in the blanks or ask for it to be more specific. And then even before I heard blend them together, what I started feeling was my name to my business was no longer resonating with me. My former name to my business was Fitness Are Us. And that just wasn't kicking it anymore. I was like, why is this name just not working for me anymore? So taking her advice of blending it together, I started, the clients who I currently had, some of them were starting to get interested in what Reiki was, what crystals were, what was essential oils. So I was sort of blending it into their regiment. And then shortly after that, maybe we'll say about 5 years ago, I heard my new business name, which is Holistic Fitness, holistic with a W. And at that point, it's like everything sort of came together. It's like, oh, so what I'm supposed to do is not work with clients based on traditional personal training that we all know personal training to be, where you come in and you hire a personal trainer, and that personal trainer does an assessment with you to determine what you want to do, how that program is going to be put together based on your goals. Now, yes, I take my clients' goals into consideration, but then I tell them, let's put those goals aside. And what I mean by that is most of our goals are superficial and 3D. And when we talk about the spiritual realm, it's not about the 3D. It's not about what we physically can see. It's really about the 4 and 5D in reference to who we are here to become. And moving our bodies in that way and studying astrology helped me to understand that our planets play a huge role. And our audience, I want them to really hear this one, plays a huge role in our body weight. There's a specific planets that has a huge aspect to whether or not we are going to hold specific water in our body, if we're going to be a certain weight, if we're going to have a struggle to release weight. And I use release weight versus lose weight. And the whole factor to that is if we focus on losing something, I'm sure both Nicole and Glenda, if you lost your favorite necklace, you're going to like tear your entire apartment down to find that favorite necklace. Yes?
Yeah, I say the same thing. When you go to lose weight, you're looking forward to gain it back later. So
exactly. And it is a psychological connection where metaphysically, psychologically, when one carries physical weight, what they've actually done without even knowing it is they've actually pulled that weight in at some time in their life or prior to life to protect them from something, to keep them safe. And that's why they carry the physical weight. Now, when one is ready to actually release that weight, and what I ask clients when they do come in carrying weight, we all want to lose the weight, but the real question is, are they really ready to release the story behind why they carry the weight? And that story is the weight. In regards to, are they ready to move into a space of forgiveness? Are they ready to move into a space of like the lesson behind their weight, why they call them the weight, and how they're going to use that story for themselves as their story to help other people? Because that's what it really is.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm curious, since you've been doing that for 30 years and your spirituality just came about maybe 10 years ago, were you able to integrate the old clients with the new, or did you see old ones drop off and new people come towards you?
A combination of both, interesting enough. Some of my old, we'll use the word older clients, they were intrigued, they were curious, so they would dabble into it. But along with, which is interesting, along with the blending of the two services also came an increase in my service. And my original approach many years back was personal training is for everybody. And even for myself, that was a really, really challenging thing for me to release, is the mindset of like everybody can afford personal training and charging very little for my services. So when I blended these two services together, as I said with one of my coaches, she had said to me, are you ready to release that belief that you have to charge little for everybody to afford your services? And at that point, I had to do that releasing of that theory and say, okay, what my value is. And once I figure that out, then yes, some of the former clients who was working with me regarding personal training, they sort of fell off because they were not aligned to my elevation. And that's okay. That's okay. I was okay.
Yeah. And I've noticed that seems to be a natural process as our vibration rises and we start like ascending maybe to different 4th or 5th dimensional ideology. People just gradually kind of ebb away and the flow comes in with people you resonate. So for me, it's been a real easy process. How about for you?
For me, it was a challenge because as a personal trainer, I get very personal with my clients. So when a client decides that for whatever their reasons are that they're not going to continue with me, I take it to heart. And it really is a big, like, I have to go through the grieving process of that client leaving, but understanding it more now, realizing that, you know what, that client's leaving because my vibration increased and they're no longer a vibrational match to me. And as long as I'm okay with that and release it, I then allow the clients who are a vibrational match to me to come in a lot faster. So it works in my advantage to really work on releasing quickly to bring in the new. I like that question.
Thank you. Thank you. And that's just what I'm finding in my life. And since I'm so passionate about spirit and the universe, I love to hear from other people and how they deal with certain things that are transpiring right now. So I appreciate you answering that. That's very, very interesting.
Thank you.
And go ahead, Glenda. I'm sorry.
No. So what is, if you're looking at somebody's coming to you for answers, maybe their life isn't going what they need to be going, what's your first step? Like, how do you handle a new client coming into you?
I love that. And my answer to that is numerology. And what I mean by that is the first question I will ask anyone who comes in, I ask them what their personal energy year, well, I don't ask them that. I ask them what their month and their day that they are born. And just from that piece of information, their month, their day, and the current year can give me insight to why they are where they are. So for example, and I'm going to use one of you two as my example since you're both here. So which one of you want to be my guinea pig?
Oh, Glenda, it's you.
Yeah.
All right, Glenda. If you wouldn't mind, and you don't have to share too much. All I want from you is your month and your day that you were born.
May the 11th.
Oh, I love it. Besides the fact that you're born on the master number day, which means that you're literally here on Earth, not just this year, but as in life, this lifetime, you are literally here to help people heal in their relationships, healing the relationship with yourself as well on a much deeper level. Yes?
Oh, yes.
And that's just the 11th.
Yeah.
We haven't even tapped into the personal energy here. So give me 1 second. Got to do some numbers in my head.
I'm excited.
So you are in your 4 energy year. And what that means, and what I did was I added the 5, the 11, plus 2022. Works out to be a 13, which is a 4. Because that 5 and 11 adds up to a 7. So your 4 is all about your foundation. You are building a new foundation this year. You are literally building an enterprise, is what I'm hearing. And if you haven't, we're the ninth month in a year. If you haven't yet, you got some work to do. You know, it's about bringing more balance into your life, bringing more stability. And because you have that 11 day where you're born, you do have to work very disciplinedly to get to where you want to go this year in building that foundation. Now, that 4 energy associated with numerology and astrology, that 4th energy is associated with Cancer, which is the 4th house, which is about the connection you have with your family, the connection you have with your mother, connection you have with other women, and also your feminine energy of being able to receive. So this might have been a really, really interesting year about learning to receive more than you give out.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. It's also associated with your home. And when we speak of home, we don't just speak of your shelter. We speak of your body. So this is an extremely important year for you to really take charge of healing your body from inside out. And because this is 2022, the universal energy, which is 6, this is a really big year for you to take care of your health, fitness, and wellness. This year, health, fitness, and wellness for you is more important than it's ever been before. Does that make sense?
Oh, big time.
So is all this resonating with you?
Well, here's the thing. I just got over a very bad incident and I was hurt. So it came to me. The universe came striking me down and saying, yeah, it's time to put your feet up and you got to look after yourself. So it's another reminder. Yeah.
Yes. Now, if you wouldn't mind sharing, and if you do mind, I'm okay with it.
No, I'm open. That's what it's like.
What area of your body did you get hurt?
My sacrum.
Okay. Love it. When we talk about the sacrum, it's the back. It's about feeling supported. And when you talk about a 4 energy year, 4 energy is your foundation. It's what supports you. So perhaps what it is unconsciously, there might have been a tint of not feeling supported. And that's why that injury occurred. So you could, and of course you wouldn't be able to do it now, but if you can go later and reflect back prior, I say about 6 weeks prior to that injury coming on, what was taking place in your life that you were vulnerable for that injury to occur. Because injuries occur when we are vulnerable. And it's the universe's way to get your attention, because the universe, as I always like to say, will knock 3 times. First knock is really light. Second knock gets a little louder. And the third knock literally, and I don't know if you can curse here, but literally knocks you off your behind. Literally. Because the universe wants your attention, and now you have to just sit still. And that's exactly what happened for you. It gave you an opportunity to sit still. Interesting fact, the last 2 years when we experienced the pandemic, I guess that wasn't enough sitting still for you. So here you are. Here you are. And that's exactly what I do when I work with clients. It's not about necessarily sitting with a fitness assessment to go over the general old-fashioned questions. I don't know if neither one of you are familiar with my deck of cards.
I love cards.
Yeah, I do too.
Yes. Now, with each card, there's 45 cards in this deck, and each card has a color, a number, and an affirmation. Now, when I give a reading, an assessment, which I call a self-growth discovery session, there's 6 to 9 cards that will show up for that person. So that means that at 6 to 9 cards, there are a total of, I work with 7 primary chakras, and I work with 8 of the colors. So out of 6 to 9 cards, that person can get one color that might show up multiple times. And that gives me the gateway into the one chakra that might need their attention to healing. So that's my gateway. That's where we start. And then, of course, I take in consideration their superficial goals, because we want to make sure I want to make sure the client knows that I'm paying attention to what they really want, what they think they want, and then what actually needs to be done so they can actually accomplish the goal of releasing the weight, the goal of creating healthier relationships with self and others, and creating financial abundance into their life. It all stems together. And I do it with my cards.
And is that pretty well received in terms of, do you find more people gravitating now, like maybe in the last couple of years, towards something that is not always tangible in terms of the universe speaking or planets that we can't? I seem to think people are really reaching out to find something other than just what they can see with their eyes. So I'm just curious if you're seeing that also.
Well, I think we definitely are experiencing a major shift in curiosity, where people are starting to really ask themselves, okay, is there something more than what's going on in front of me? And if there is, what is it? And I think that's really the big thing. People are becoming curious. Because again, being in the health and fitness industry for 30 plus years, witnessing, oh my God, I can't tell you how many books there are out there regarding how to lose weight, what fair diet to go on today. And the reality is the average person loses and regains their 50 pounds more times than they can count, because their approach is so superficial. It's again, they're like, I want to lose this weight, but they're not focused on what the weight is associated with, the emotional connection to it. And this is gonna like be the gateway into, when we think about our emotions, how the planets play a role in our emotions. I mean, I speak about this a lot on my live, where the moon itself, the moon rotates every 2.5 days. Now, the moon rotates from a fire sign an air sign, a water sign, and an earth sign. Now, depending on where one's moon sign is, will determine on where the moon is collectively and how we feel about it. And if we're in that space where we're really emotional that day, that's going to draw in on how it's going to affect our body. Are we going to look for, and I have no idea to why I'm being called to say this word, are we going to look for Twinkies to help solve our emotional need for the day? Or are we going to look into and reference like, okay, why am I feeling this way? Like for me, when I wake up feeling a little off, the first thing I do is I go and check out my astrology information. Where is the moon? Now, the last 3 days, and with the moon still in Cancer energy as we speak. For many, when the moon's in Cancer, it's in a very emotional aspect because Cancer is ruled by the moon for one, but it's also associated with our mother. Now, theoretically, if you ask the average person about their relationship with their mother, some people have an amazing relationship with their mother, and some people not so much. So right off the bat, when the moon is in Cancer, that reflects on how we're feeling about our inner child that might not be feeling so great because the subconscious, unconscious thoughts are flaring up. And they're not aware to like, why am I feeling this way? Now, I know for me, I am definitely a moon child. My rising sign is Cancer. So when the moon is in Cancer, I don't want to use this term, but I'm going to. I'm an emotional wreck. I can't wait for the moon to come out of Cancer to move into something else because it's like, oh my God. but that's just what it is. Glenda, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just going to, two different questions. So when you talked about your relationship and, so could it be like, what happens if your parents are now gone? Your relationship that you had still has an effect on you at this point as well. Like just because a parent leaves us, it doesn't mean that, oh, they're gone and that's the end of it. It still reflects in us and how we relate to other things in the future. Can you iterate a little bit more on that one?
Definitely can. I love that you brought that question up because in reality is if someone had a challenging relationship with a parent and their parent crosses over, those emotions become even more deeper because they've never got a chance to actually go through the forgiveness. So that's their lesson. That is their journey. And different things will show up for them for that healing to occur. So whether their parent is still here in the flesh or has moved into the spiritual realm, it's still going to affect them. They're still going to grieve that, well, and I'm here in this example, my mother didn't love me. Maybe that particular person had numerous of siblings and mom couldn't give her attention to everybody. And because that particular person might have needed in this timeline to learn how to love herself unconditionally. And this is an example I share with a lot of men, particularly some women, where sometimes when we have to teach ourselves self-love because the parent didn't give it to us, it's because that's our lesson to teach it ourselves. So we can appreciate and respect it more when we do fall in love with ourselves. So when a parent crosses over, doesn't necessarily mean that, okay, whatever the relationship was, that it's going to be, well, they're gone, so I don't have to deal with it anymore. In fact, it's the total opposite. Now they have to really do the work because they've crossed over, and it's just going to be one of those things that anytime they get triggered by something, it's going to bring them back to that experience with their parent.
I think that's so, Glenda, that you brought that up is so important because my mom passed away too. And Joanne, just like you're saying, sometimes that's when the work starts, is after they pass. And I know I had to practice forgiveness with my mom afterwards. And so I would love for the audience that's listening to understand that spirit exists outside of our realm. Maybe not tangible, but it's always there. So if you are in a space where you feel you haven't forgiven, you are free to continue to do that.
Yes.
And I want to also interject something here too, because when a parent doesn't do what we think that they should be doing because we perceive it to our ways. It's also a great form or a time when we can learn from that and we can learn to change it. So if there's something going on in your past where it becomes recyclable, where it goes from generation, and you didn't like it, that's a perfect time for you to say, this is what maybe hurt me or that I found, and you going forward, you make sure that you don't make that same mistake. So it's just I look at it as a great lesson, and instead of continuing it on, to change it moving forward.
Yes, yes. And that's exactly why it shows up, because it is a lesson. And there's there's this expression in regards to clearing the generational patterns.
Mm.
And when we clear the generational patterns, understanding that each person that's in our life, our parents, mom and dad, that's just their title in this lifetime. Now,
Right.
just because it's their title in this lifetime doesn't necessarily mean they got the rule book to how to be a mom or dad, especially if they weren't receiving that lesson when they were a child. So we really do need to, not just with our mom and dad, but with our siblings as well. We really need to understand that they're doing the best they know how based on their circumstance. And when we can move into that energy,
Yes.
we can move into a space of that unconditional love and the forgiveness to, like, oh, well, my mother didn't show me the same love that she showed my sister. And I make that statement not because that's for me, but just generally speaking. Mom might have needed to show the sister the love because maybe in the contract that the sister had is the sister needed to receive that in this lifetime. And the other sister who wasn't getting the love, she needed to experience how to love herself. And we all have different journeys and different lessons to learn in this lifetime, so we can become lighter and lighter, raise the vibration so we can eventually cross over.
Exactly. And I love that we're planting these seeds here too, because that's what's happening now. And I too believe that we come in with a contract, that we've written our script per se for this
Yes.
life. Now, because we have free will, of course it can change. But if you think about it, if you pick your parents and your siblings, everything that's going on within that family dynamic is to teach every single person some type of lesson that you agreed to before you came here.
That is so true. And the other thing too that we have to keep in mind, as I mentioned before about our parents' roles and our siblings' roles. I mean, in this lifetime, that's the role they play. In the past life, for example, I truly believe my younger sister in my past life was my mother. I don't remember, I don't know what lifetime, but I truly do believe she was my mother. And she tends to carry those tendencies in this lifetime. Out of my two sisters and I'm in the middle. My younger sister really takes on the responsibility of mothering us in reference to making sure everything is in the order that it needs to be. Whereas my older sister almost acts as though she's the younger sister. And it's really funny, but I think in a past life, my younger sister was really my mother. And that's why that relationship is there. And that's why she's so nurturing to me, to make sure that, okay, I'm okay. And make sure that, whatever's going on in my life, that I'm okay. And I'm okay with that. I don't get upset like, well, you're my younger sister. Why do you care so much? Why are you meddling into my life? Well, because in this lifetime, you're my younger sister. But in my past life, you might have been my mother. And I'm okay with that.
And it's so hard too, because as a human, when we're in our earth suit, whatever you want to call it, you sit there and think, why would I have picked this? There's times you're like, are you kidding me? I picked this. It's like my parents, my brothers, my sisters, everyone. It's really crazy. So, and I have a question for you, because you were talking about astrology and numerology. Are those best used separately, or do they give you more power when you put them both together to determine what's going on in someone's life?
Okay, so this is strictly my point of view.
Okay.
I truly believe both astrology and numerology, when combined together, is super powerful because you're getting you're getting ideas from both modalities, and it really is super powerful. But at the same token, they're parallel because whatever the energies are, the four, like I said about the four energy, which is about foundation and healing and stability and balance and being disciplined to get what you want to get. The fourth house is about healing, nurturing, family, home, and the connection with our mother and all the feminine energy. So they are really parallel to one another. So from my point of view, and I've been gifted to be able to do both. So to me, it's like, hey, why not? I mean, if you can combine astrology and numerology and get so much more, it's like a 2-for-1. You know,
absolutely. And, you know, I've even heard stories about Ronald Reagan when he was president. His wife, Nancy, would not let any major decisions be made until they consulted with the astrologer, you know, kind of an in-house astrologer. So I know people take it, you know, it's very interesting to me, but it can be taken very seriously to help you guide your life. And I'm very curious now, we've got, what, 6 planets in retrograde at the moment? How does that affect everybody?
Yes. Well, at least for another week, week and a half, because as of October 8th, one of the, I'm going to use the word biggest planet, which is Pluto. And why I say it's the biggest planet, Pluto is the planet of, as I like to call it, destruction and demolition and destroying what no longer serves every one of us personally and collectively. And Pluto has been in retrograde since April 29th of 2022, right through October 8th of 2022. That's a really long time for it to be in a retrograde. And it's in retrograde in Capricorn energy. Now let's talk about Capricorn just for a second. Capricorn is the 10th house in astrology and associated with our soul's purpose, what we came here to do. So now when you take the two, Capricorn and Pluto, Pluto's about destroying what doesn't serve us. Capricorn's our soul's purpose. So there's a lot of us, especially in the last 2 years, have experienced losses, debts, griefs, endings because of things that no longer serves us. And that's Pluto's doing. In regards to when a planet is in retrograde, it gives us time to reflect. And many have already started to experience the demolition work. Once it goes direct, I was just having this conversation with one of my old astrologer friends, and I'm like, I am so looking forward to seeing what happens once Pluto goes direct. And that's only one of the 5. But there's going to be a lot of demolition going on for all of us collectively as well, where a lot of people are going to experience a lot of change, a lot of endings, whether it's an ending of a job, ending of a relationship. And when I use the word ending of a relationship, yes, it could be literally where the relationship ends because it just doesn't serve either party anymore. Or it could also be that the relationship in that stature ends and both parties evolve to the next level.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Exactly. And most people, when they hear the relationship's ending, especially if people go for, let's say, a reading, and the person who's doing the reading, they say, well, your relationship's going to end. The minute you plant that seed in someone's head that their relationship's going to end, they're going to think their relationship's going to end. And the reality, no, it's not necessarily going to end. It just means now you have to both work to evolve into the next level of your relationship. You know, so when we think of that Pluto retrograde, it's about our soul's purpose. And many of us, if not all of us, are transitioning really out of, let's say, those 3D jobs and moving more into our spiritual purpose, our spiritual evolution. And that's just one of the 6 planets. And that asteroid, which is Chiron, that's been in retrograde in Aries. And Chiron is the wounded healer. So we're all really digging deep in within ourselves in reference to like what wounds show up and how can we heal and how can we move forward. You know,
and will you do a favor too? I know a lot of people that will watch, people think retrograde is going backwards, but would you explain what retrograde is and then what direct, when a planet is direct? Okay, I would appreciate that.
Perfectly said. When we think of retrograde, The meaning of retrograde means it slows down and goes backwards. Now, the planets don't go backwards. They just flow. The energy of that planet slows down to give us an opportunity to reflect, which is, when you think about it, retrograde, R-E, reflection, review, revisit, recharge, reset. So it's the opportunity to, like, again, wherever the planet is in the specific zodiac sign and on one's personal chart, that's the theme to what's going to be reviewed and evaluated. Now, once the planet has gone direct, it's exactly that. It means now the energy that we've been working with internally, now we're going to start to see those actions take place going forward. The things where, and I love that Nicole mentioned free will. I don't believe in free will. And what I mean by that is, again, we all have contracts and we have to fulfill those contracts. And if we choose that we're not going to do whatever our contract is, in theory, we're supposed to come back and be reincarnated to fill those contracts again. So where is the free will here?
Okay, but hold on. I want to ask for, because I understand, but a lot of people don't. Let's go back again, and can you expand on the contracts?
Yes.
People don't understand that.
I'm loving that. Yes. So, and Nicole mentioned this too. Contracts mean, like, the three of us right now, we have a contract. Now, ideally, Glenda and Nicole, you have a longer term contract because you do this work together. My contract with the two of you is semi-short term. And I use the word semi because I just got a message that there may be some more work that the three of us are going to be doing down the road. Okay. So a contract is an agreement between people that were created even before we were born. This goes in the point of preconception, where we literally, if you can visualize this, for those of us who have a really good imagination, and those who don't, we all do. We were all kids at one time. Imagine sitting across the table with your higher power, whomever you might want to refer that as, and they're going to sit with you and say, okay, this is going to be your job when you are incarnated in this lifetime. This is your responsibility. These are the different people that I'm going to connect you with, contract you with for these jobs to get fulfilled. And then you go over the list, so to speak. You don't really have a say to say no. It's basically the higher person is saying, this is what you're going to be doing. This is your soul's purpose here. And this is what you're going to fulfill in order to release the emotional weight so you can cross back over. So the contracts are an agreement that is created between you and your higher power with all these different people that come into play. Some of these contracts could be very short-lived, such as a 2-minute contract, where, let's say, hypothetically, you're standing at the bus stop and you have a conversation, or you overhear a conversation, and that conversation is so earth-shaking for you. That particular contract, even though it wasn't a long contract, you learned something from that experience. So that person that was there at that given time was a part of your contract, short term as it was. And then you have longer term contracts. People who are in your life, they come in and out of your life constantly, creating chaos or creating joy, whatever it might be at that time. And that's what a contract is, the agreements that we have with every person in our lives. There is no accident to the experiences that we have, even the ones that could be horrific, because believe it or not, and I have this conversation a lot with women, the horrific experiences that women go through, and sometimes men too, that's part of their lesson of their journey to get them to where they have to go, so they too can share their experience and help others. And everything is a lesson, and everything takes us to our journeys.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm a total believer on about that, and I believe instead of looking at things in a negative form, we need to look at it of what I can learn and grow, and how stronger you become from whatever you've gone through.
Exactly. Yes.
Absolutely. And I always just look at this as Earth as a school. It's learning. We're always learning. So
Yeah.
that's how I see it. And when I look back, it's just like, well, did you learn something from it? And 99.9% of the time, I certainly have. Whether I liked it or not, there was always a lesson in that moment.
Exactly. And I like the fact that you bring that statement up, because what happens to many when we have not learned the lesson, what happens is that we repeat the lesson. So that pattern, which is known as patterns, will show up again. And I know myself, I've said this more times than I can count. Why does this keep showing up? Like, what's the problem here? Now, up until probably a year ago, I always took it as, well, I haven't learned the lesson. However, what I learned from that is sometimes a pattern will show up to remind you how much you have actually learned. So it's not so much about that you have to learn more, but what have you learned since the last pattern was there? So you can actually give yourself recognition of, wow, I've done a lot of healing. I'm a very different person than I was then. And wow, the pattern's here again. I don't get as agitated as I've done in the past. So wow, so rather than being angry for, let's say, 5 days, wow, I only stayed angry for maybe an hour.
And it's just as simple as, did you react or did you respond?
So how you reacted.
Yeah. What did you learn? And then it's an aha moment for yourself that, boy, if I hadn't gone through that, this outcome would have been totally different. So you're right. It's very important.
Yes, exactly.
Right. It's learning that, when you're going down that road and all of a sudden there's the hole in the road, instead of going down into that hole again, you learn, because you've been through it, you can go and drive around that hole because now you have learned from that lesson. So you're not, or maybe you don't even go down that street anymore.
Exactly.
It is there to teach us. And, this is what the most important thing people have to learn is that, as we grow stronger, we also grow wiser from all of these things.
Exactly. In fact, I would like to share a really quick personal story, if I may, based on this exact topic. Now, my husband and I know each other for, oh my God, well over 30 years. I dated him when I was 16. We dated 3 different times. Each time we dated for a year, parted ways, came back, dated. Second time we dated, we conceived our daughter. We parted ways when I was 6 months pregnant. And once that point, we then parted ways for 14 years.
Wow.
Let's see, 11 years ago, we came back together. And 5 years afterwards, which was just about 9 years ago, him and I got married. So theoretically, the patterns that we experience and the different darkness that we went through and the lessons, and him and I talk about this all the time, where it's like, well, you think if we would have done it this way, it would have been different and we would have been married like when we were 17? And we both come to the same conclusion on the different times that we were in and out of each other's lives. There were reasons why we were in and out of each other's lives. There was a lot of things going on during those points where we were not together that help us to be the people we are today. And with all the lessons that him and I have experienced separately, we now are the people we are today, which theoretically, like so many people sit back and say, well, if I would have just gone the right lane as opposed to the left, it would have been different. Reality of it all is wherever your destiny is meant to be, whether you go the right way or the left way, you're going to get to where you're supposed to get to. And you're going to take on experiences and lessons, and you're going to have a journey and a story to share down the road.
But let me ask you on that question. Do you see, yes, I understand what you're saying, but we also have 2 ways of taking things. We can, when something happens in our journey, we can either take a positive side step or a negative side step. And that negative side step can actually create more harm and make us go on a spiraling, possibly downward journey, as a positive mindset can teach us other things, make us stronger, and change your entire destiny from that.
Yes. And I'm loving the fact that you use positive and negative. My spin on that, though, is the negative aspects of it all also teaches us something.
Definitely.
and takes us along the way as well. So whether we want to look at it as, well, this was a negative experience or this was a positive experience, whatever the experience was, it's taking us where we have to get to.
No, but I get that. But what I'm saying is, okay, you head into a marriage and you have a divorce. And that divorce, you can turn around and become angry and spiteful, and it goes tearing down, and it changes you. People don't want to hang around you because you are that way. Or you could go through a nasty divorce and turn around and say, okay, I learned from it. I'm grateful. I got a lot of things out of it, and carry on. And that's a very different outcome.
Yes. And what I'm hearing about that is, let's say, for example, the person who's been divorced and it makes them angry. Now, theoretically, I like to believe that our traumas or our dramas or whatever the experience is, that is almost like the gateway to taking us down into our spiritual journey to discover who we are. So recognizing that divorce was one of those lessons that we were supposed to experience to help us tap into our anger. Because let's look at it as the anger that we are feeling from the divorce, that anger was actually deeper within. That anger was already there from something else, maybe a past life experience, and that divorce brought it up for that person to heal from their anger. Not from it, the anger was from the divorce, but rooted deeply. And when that person can discover, well, through this relationship came a divorce. What did I learn about myself on this journey of the relationship and on the journey of the divorce? And it really is more of a journey, a spiritual journey of reflecting. So yeah, they're going to be angry. And it may very well take them to that point where they lose people because they become a different person because they're angry. But understanding, as we said with our contracts, when people fall away, it's because they're no longer in the vibration of us anymore. And we are now going to meet new people that's going to now match the new energy, because that person who got divorced is no longer the same person they were when they were married. They're different.
Right.
So their energies are very different, which means new contracts. So yeah, they may end up losing what they might have called their friends at the time, because they're a very different person. So it's their journey, their lesson. It's just something that some people experience, where some people go through multiple marriages, get divorced multiple times. And it's like, okay, so, all right, they're on marriage number 3. What am I going to learn from this experience?
Yeah.
And how is this experience going to get me to where I need to go so I can evolve into this next person and be, let's say, the best divorce coach there is? Because again, I mean, that person has a lot of experience in that area where they can now coach and help others, not necessarily to get them not to get divorced, but to get them to understand what that lesson was that they had to experience for that moment.
And I can certainly say that I think you and I, Glenda, can agree that we're far different people after divorce than we were maybe during, or
100%.
And this sounds odd, but had I not gone through all of that,
Well, she froze on us. Okay.
Yes, she'll come back, I'm guessing.
Yes, she'll come back.
What was your input on that one?
No, well, I'll finish telling how I feel, because had I not, I look at always things on the bright side. She'll come back on. But had I not gone through my divorce, the first divorce, I wouldn't have my 2 wonderful kids that I totally adore. And it, that would have changed my life considerably. Had I not gone through that, I wouldn't have the wisdom that I have today. Because
exactly. And noting that too, not to cut you off, but you have 2 children?
Yes.
Yes. So noting that your 2 children chose both you and your husband to be their parents, which could have been the main reason why you and your husband even got together, because there was already a contract created with 2 children, and those 2 children needed to be born from you and your husband. And once that was done, then whatever else, however else long after the children were born, that whatever you needed to learn from that, then it was time to truly depart ways. So it makes a lot of sense.
It makes a huge amount of sense, and more than you actually even know in that respect. Yes.
I'm sure.
Okay, so Nicole, as you froze and then popped
Well,
out.
apparently I was not supposed to talk about that, was I?
Not really.
They kicked me out, and then they showed my green screen to the world. So it's like, lesson learned. Sorry, my bad. So I'll just let you two continue because I think I got scolded.
No. We're, you know what, it's just, you know, the whole part about, I believe, about life is being open-minded and being able to see what comes into us, accept it, whether it's good or bad, learn from it. And you know, for me, my life, you know, when I sort of saw things happening in my life, I always knew that there was a reason why all these things that I had went through. Like I always say, when you know, I always say when shit hits the fan, I never get hit with one thing. I get hit by multiple things. It's like a storm that comes over, and I always survive.
Yes.
So it's meant so I can help others, because I came in as a caregiver. So that's what it came from me in my life.
Yes. And if we take this back to the very beginning of our topic about our personal energy year, depending on our number, our personal energy number, such as Glenda's number is 11 as a master healer for this year. You know, so like, for example, I mean, not just your personal number is 11, that's your birthday. Your personal number is 4, which is similar. Mine's 4 as well, which is about building a new foundation. Now, let's say you get someone who does have, let's say, a 9 energy year or an 11 energy year. Their experiences are going to be very different. And like a 9 energy year could be experiencing everything ending. Every area of their life could be in a whirlwind, because it's supposed to shift and change. So their personal energy year number plays a huge role on what they're experiencing this year and what's going to fall away and how they're going to make space for what's to come next year. Now, interesting, when we talk about next year's energy, which when you add 2023, it's a 7. So next year, every one of us, besides our personal year number, every one of us are going to go through a spiritual awakening. So we're all going to evolve some more. Could you imagine, all 3 of us? Our vibrations are going to be hitting the ceiling next year, because we're going to really be curious on, like, well, what else is there? Who am I really? And what legacy can I leave behind because of the energy we're moving into?
Yeah, it's everything that's coming up, I truly believe, is changing all the old paradigms of how we've lived, what we've done, our conditioning. I think many things are going to fall away. And I'm very excited to see what's coming. I just think that, you know, we came in at a really important time in history and important time of the planet. And so I'm ready to get out of retrograde and move forward. I can tell you that.
Yes, me too. I'm very excited to see all these lovely planets, although we do have a little while, because let me just look at my notes for this one. Let's see. Jupiter doesn't go direct until November 23rd. And I believe Uranus stays retrograde right until the new year. So let me just check on that. Yeah, Uranus, which is our planet, this is what I call Uranus. It's the planet of the midlife crisis. It's the awakening planet. And it doesn't go direct until January 22nd. So we have a little while in regards to our midlife crisis that many of us are on right now. And we're all on, to some degree, a midlife crisis, to be curious of, like, okay, what's next? What's next? We're all asking that question. What's next? You know, and I just find it so exciting and intriguing in reference to, like, how these planets really do play a role. And when one can understand their chart, their numerology, it really is the GPS of their life. And I know for me, understanding my planets and numerology takes away some of the fear of, like, why is this happening? Like, what the hell? And as Nicole said earlier about the contracts, it's like, we really signed up for this? Like, what the heck were we thinking? I say that to myself all the time. I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
what was I thinking? Did I really, really choose this? I don't know what the hell I was talking about.
Yeah.
They must have drugged me to sign that paperwork.
I know it's crazy when you look back, but life is but a lesson for the soul, and that's what we're all experiencing and going through. And if it can take me to a higher level, to another plane on my next journey, I just praise it, because I think that's what the journey's all about, is learning. And for me, I've been very blessed, even with everything I've gone through. So I try to put things in perspective and look at it as well. You bungled that one, but what did you learn from it? And here I sit with Glenda every Wednesday, and I give blessings for that, because I didn't see that coming. So many things I didn't see coming, and I'm just very grateful that they're here.
Yes. Well, it's a good thing that we don't get to see all of our gifts right out, because reality, that's why they're called gifts. Every year we get to unwrap something brand new, and there's adventure that comes with this. There's surprises that come with this, along with our lessons. So even though we may go through some dark moments, there's some really bright moments along the ride as well.
Absolutely. And through those dark moments actually do come a lot of bright sunshine moments from it, because we learn. As women, we tend to knock ourselves down so much, and we're not good enough, pretty enough, smaller, smart enough, thin enough, whatever. We got all these things that we keep knocking ourselves down. Oh, I blew it. I should have done this. All the things. But if we can just sit back and just love ourselves just that little bit, it would make such a change.
Yes, it would.
So I want to ask you something, and I know we're getting close to the time, and we're going to run over, because I could listen to this for forever. I love this. But, I want to also put, you're sitting in front of weights and a whole gym of things. And I want to ask you, because, of course you can do readings and stuff online. And yes, we will find out ways of contacting you and all the rest of it. But tell us why you're sitting in front of all this gym equipment.
Well, interesting story. Talk about change and contracts. This is actually going to be, let's see, next week is actually going to be my last week of sitting in front of all of this stuff, because I am transitioning my business. Like right now, this is my place of business where I see clients for holistic personal training, readings, healing, you name it. Everything's going to go virtual. So I'm actually going to see clients on a virtual base, just like we're doing here. Yeah. And I currently do it already. Been doing virtual training, personal training, holistic personal training for the last 4 years. And it's just expanding. And just, I had said a long time ago, I forget how old I was, when I was being given this insight that I'm only one person. How can I reach everybody? Being only one person. Because my biggest mission is that I really want to be able to really help women all over, as many women as I can, to literally release the issues from their tissues so they can release their emotional weight and fall in love with themselves. And being limited to one space and having now this access where I can connect all over the world and not have to go anywhere. So what's behind me is for another week, my home for 21 years.
Oh, wow.
And
transition.
Well, congratulations.
Yes. And it's bittersweet, because I sit back and some days I just sit in the middle of the room and I cry, like, what the heck? And I ask myself, well, what could I have done differently so I can stay in here and do this for another 21 years? But I keep hearing, you're the one that said you want to be able to meet the world and do this on a much bigger scale. And to do that, I need to be in that releasing the weight, and literally, when you think about it, and allowing myself to be available to all the other opportunities that are coming my way. And the doors are just going to fly open, as I too am in the 4 energy years. So my foundation is literally changing, but this has been my home for 21 years. And it's like, wow, to say that out loud makes me sad, but at the same time, it makes me really excited to know what's coming in next.
Yeah, that's what we said. There's always great new things coming, and I love it. Well, you are totally, I guess we just lost her again. You are just an absolute, I love it. You've given so much insight, and I know we could keep going on. And, hopefully you'll want to come back and shed a little bit more light on this, because I would like to listen to you. And I believe that there's a lot of messages out there that we need to put out to a lot of women, but as well as I like to also, even though that, my client base is mostly women, but there are a lot of men out there that are also very heart-centered and open-minded and willing to step out of their comfort zone. And, for women, we tend to, we can push ourselves a little bit now, even though we're still beating ourselves up through. So first of all, can you tell us how people can find you? Because I'm sure, as for me, will be one of the first to jump in and say, I'd love to get a reading. So how can people find you?
Well, I think the easiest is through my website, which is holistic with a W, fitnessny.com. And I'm all over Facebook. I have a YouTube channel. And interesting enough, I have a radio and TV show.
Ooh.
Yes, so you can find out all this information. I have a TV show called Joanne's Healing Within. It airs most Sundays at 3 p.m. Eastern Time on Strong Island Television, which is featured on Facebook, but all the major platforms such as Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Twitch TV, you name it, I'm there. Same thing with my radio show, and that's called Joanne's Cosmic Energy. That airs once a month on the first Wednesday of the month at 3:33 p.m. Eastern Time.
Oh, I love that.
And yes, I had to change the time. Originally, it was like 3 o'clock, but then one day I was like, well, because it's all about cosmic energy, we have to make the time more cosmic. So yeah, I can be found pretty much everywhere. You could probably just Google Joanne Angel Barry Colon and boop, boop, boop. If I ever tried to hide, I probably would not be able to.
Well, I'm glad you can hide, because we've now found you.
Yes.
So I always love to ask our guest if they have something special that they want to leave us, our people, out, a golden nugget that maybe can help us in our next phase. Like, as we say, we're into the last segment of this 2022. What golden nugget can you leave us with today?
What golden nugget? I guess the best one is just be open to learning something about yourself every day, because that's what it is. As Nicole said earlier, we are in a earth school, and every single day is an opportunity to learning about yourself. Recognize that every person that comes into your life, whether they stay for a minute or a lifetime, they're a mirror of yourself. And the things you like about that person is what you like about yourself. The things that irritate you about that person, well, those are the things that irritate you about yourself, which means you need a little healing done. There's not a person on this earth that doesn't need some sort of healing. Because if you didn't need healing, you wouldn't be here anymore. And that's just what it is. We're all here on this earth. We're all evolving to become the best version of ourselves, and to recognize that you are already the best version of yourself. And you have to see it that way. These are just lessons we're going through to get to where we have to go.
I love that. And it's all about loving ourselves, because if we keep knocking ourselves down, what are we doing to ourselves? We've got to be able to learn that, we are all here just to enjoy ourselves.
Yes, exactly. And when we think about loving ourselves, when we talk about relationships, it's recognizing that, reminding ourselves that everybody is working at the level that they can work at. And that we can hold compassion, kindness, and love for each person, because we don't know the other person's story. We don't know what they're experiencing at the very layer. So we can just hold that and always, as I always like to say, see that person from your eyes as the best version. Focus on what they're good at. Whatever it is, if there's only one thing that that person's good at, that's what you stay focused on. And constantly compliment that person about that one thing that you see good on them. Because by praising that person, it raises their energy. And when their energy raises, they start to feel good about themselves. And that's when we start to fall in love with ourselves because we feel good about ourselves. And that just is, it's an internal, external exchange. We receive it, we give it. Very simple.
Oh, Joanne, I love you.
I love you too.
It's beautiful. Thank you so much for coming today and raising our vibrations, because, you know, you're speaking my language. Loving, caring, and giving. You know, what more is there in life? Isn't that what it's all about?
That is what it's all about. That's why I was chosen to do this work.
Yes, I'm glad you were.
Thank you.
Anyways, we want to thank you so much for coming on today and blessing us with some crazy, wonderful insight. And I really thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining us today and coming on and allowing us to learn, grow, and more than anything else, to learn to love ourselves. Thank you very much. And I look forward to the next time that we meet again.
Thank you.
Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. We will put Joanne's, when we finish this, we will put Joanne's links down below so you'll be able to contact her directly and get your own personal readings or have some form of connections, whatever you like. In the meantime, remember, just love yourself. That's all it's all about. Thank you.